seen that the changing perspective on elitism or rise of elitism as a necessary evil is higher or more dominant in school education sector, but not in the university sector, because university education sector is highly politicized, and still there are in the chief positions there is political appointment. So appointment elected by the political parties and ministries and cabinet. So who governs our school or academia is still a big debatable question now. So especially those having full spectrum dominance in society. In one part, when you look at the school education sector in most of the South Asian countries, including mine, we see that those not necessarily in the instructional leadership or delivery part, but in the management part. So we have two kinds of leadership positions in the school governance system. One for the instructional delivery, instructional leadership, and one for the managerial leadership. So what we might say school governance bodies or school management committees. So in order to lead schools, we have that kind of two governing bodies. And my topic highlights on the managerial aspect, that is more on governing the education system rather than improving teaching learning practices and pedagogical innovations. So those who have full spectrum dominance in the society are there in the school management committees or school governance boards. And so is the case in university governance, but the practice these days is in the university system, they necessarily should have some political ties. That is not the case in school governance system. So my conceptualization of elites in academia is something, as I said, it's a common assumption that elites are necessarily aristocrats and they are not socially oriented. This is a kind of narrowly defined elitism in our practice. So I say this is still narrowly defined, and we need to elaborate what kind of elitism we need in today's society. So we also can see this neo-patrimonialism in education, and in maybe around a week back I read in one of Moscow Times report that Russia is also having this problem. And I wonder why this kind of country, which has its own schools on elitology and it has been raising the discussion of elitology in education, is still getting this kind of news around. In our part of the world, we do not have the very concept of elitism gaining popularity. And as I went through some of the literatures, I found that the literatures on elitism are basically Russian. And I feel proud that, okay, this is the place where we can learn more about elitism or elitology. Maybe from this conference, we can also take away some of the key messages of elitology and how we can better understand elitology in our local context. So we still have the fear of dark side of elitism because it is narrowly defined and it is still widely conceptualized that elitism is necessarily bad. And so that we have a civil war against the elites. During the civil war time, 1996 over to 2006, we shouted down with elitism. And by the end of the civil war, we declared elitism is dead. And unfortunately, that dead elitism could rise again, but in a different form. So the different form that it manifested itself after the declaration of the death of elitism was relatively socially oriented elitism. So in that sense, we call that elitism evil, but still it is necessary. So we could see a gradual paradigm shift in the dominant kind of elitism to be shifted, especially in the school governance sector, but not in other political and social spheres. So we also started having discussions and interactions on the role of elites in education now. So this is a very recent phenomenon after 2012 or 13. So the practice in academia now is we need to raise the head teachers or university rector and vice chancellors qualifications bar and professional backgrounds. And we also started this head teacher licensing and transfer benchmarks. And also have some professional benchmark for school governance boards or university governance boards. So with these three key ideas and discussions still going on, we now can claim that the public awareness about the rise of benevolent or socially oriented elitism is a must. So moreover, very recently, political parties are also tapping the academics, the intellectual elites, to be in their, for example, economic boards, international relation boards, and education sectors. So they invite university professors to be as work for them as consultants if they do not agree to take their membership. So in that sense, political parties are also being more aware about the role of intellectual elites and professional elites into their committees. So in the recent phenomenon, we can see these elites coming to the school governance board or education leadership positions from our professional fields. So these days, professional elites are to be in different positions to find right people in the right places so that we can better improve our leadership scenario. And with those quite a few discussions, I could take away some of the key messages and I self-reflect. But there are three key considerations of this report. One is suitability of the elites practices or elitism. So it is a kind of relative concept that we should understand or consider it that way. So suitability of particular elites to be elites is linked to the local context of the university or school. So we cannot say that the elitism that is practiced in one context cannot be replicated in our context. So maybe this practice of elitism in academia is emergent and context-based. So, however, the report doesn't claim that the dark side of elitism doesn't exist. It still exists, but these days we have seen the brighter side to be upsurging, that's coming out very dominantly. So, at this stage in our country, we have seen that we do not have any systemic efforts to put elitism in practice or elite leadership into different positions. So what we can do right now is, I reflect is, until having principle of systemic elitism, we need to capture socially oriented or benevolent elitism. So that is necessary to transform our failing education system. And finally, a key message that with the discussion in I went through some of the Russian literatures, all translated through Google Translator, thanks to Google. So I understand that we are at the stage of elite formation. And what we can do is we have to develop some networks with Russian schools, colleges and universities, and we can develop some schools on elitism. We can develop a school of elitism or elitology within our university. So that would be one of the key messages that I can take my university back, and then maybe in near future we can establish one school of elitology. So this is it. Thank you very much.